great, Sven.
Hey, so morning, and thank you for having me. I'm calling you from my home workstation on the beautiful Skokomish nation up here on the Olympic Peninsula. It's a beautiful day here. I'm going to talk about state priority pests, and we think of it just a little bit different here from the state perspective. One of the things we've realized is that pests don't really care if we have a trapping method. They don't care about political boundaries. They don't care about anything like that. And so basically for us here at the Pest program, our goal is to protect state resources by preventing the establishment of high-risk invasive insects, terrestrial snails, plant diseases, and noxious weeds. And our core functions are detection, identification, inspection, eradication if possible, and outreach. We found that outreach has been a very important part of what we do and leads to successful programs. This year, we're running 11 different surveys for invasive insects and mollusks. We're also looking for different plant diseases and a few weeds as well. These surveys have a combined 83 different target species. So Yolanda went over some of the CAPS and national priority pests. We also add in a few state priority pests. And when we develop a pest list, we actually go out and we ask important industries and different communities actually what pests are of significance to them. We have some limits on what we can do. We can only do those that are regulated, and basically we have to do 60% on the list that Yolanda mentioned, which are national priority pests. But basically, I would never have time to go through all 83 in any sort of detail, so I'm going to highlight 4 of them. Some of them are on the national priority pest list, some of them are not. And you'll see a few of them actually sort of overlap with what Yolanda was speaking about. And so I'm going to go over northern giant hornet, Japanese beetle, vineyard snail, and spotted lanternfly. Normally I'd throw a pathogen in, but it's 15 minutes and I'm the state entomologist, not the state pathologist. So we'll stick to what we know. First of all, we'll go with northern giant hornet. Some of you may have heard northern giant hornet called some other names. Until recently, it was called Asian giant hornet. Here in this country, in other countries, it's called yak killer. In Japan, one of its native ranges, it's called a bee roughly the size of a sparrow. So that's the loose translation of it. But the New York Times also dubbed it murder hornet. And this was kind of problematic for a number of reasons. And so because because all hornets are found in Asia, calling it Asian giant hornet didn't make a lot of sense. It didn't really narrow it down. So it was recently changed to northern giant hornet because there are 2 giant hornets really in the hornet species list. And one of them's found sort of in the northern part of the world, and one of them's found kind of in the southern, more tropical part. So this species was first detected in Nanaimo, British Columbia, Canada in 2019 when a nest was found and eradicated. And this was a big surprise to everybody, although we did have some clue that these could possibly establish over here. But we were used to maybe just finding an occasional adult or an occasional queen. This time it was a whole nest that was established and breeding and doing very well. Later that year, the first specimen was found in Washington, and it was the first one for the United States, and that was on December 8th of 2019. And that's really weird because normally hornets are done flying around the end of November. Into December is really pushing it late. So it was very unusual to find a dead one at the foot of somebody's door, and it was brand new, was not there the night before, so we knew it was live just shortly before it died in front of the man's door. The pest is native to Asia, and it is a known pest of managed honeybees. And this is a big problem for agriculture and a big problem for everybody. Besides being a pest of managed bees, it's also an aggressive predator of many other insect species. And in fact, here at WSDA, when we were able to get a few nests, we tested and found quite a big list, and most of them include our native yellow jackets and wasps and other things like that. And also, of course, the list included managed honeybees. And we did this by testing the fecal matter inside the nest, using DNA and basically creating a profile of what these guys were eating. So that was really cool to see what they were eating. We had a few weird things on there, like wild turkey, hamburger of all things, so they're also scavenging on things that they can find as well. What makes this really scary is that just a few hornets can kill a healthy honeybee hive in only a few hours. And those who use managed bees will know that a healthy honeybee hive is quite an investment in both time and money. And so to have a hive that you've managed throughout the year just disappear in a few hours, it's a pretty significant blow. Pretty easy to recognize this. First of all, we don't have any actual true hornets in Washington state. There is an introduced species, which is Vespa crabro, or the European hornet, in the eastern part of the United States. And over here in Washington, the closest thing we have is called the aerial hornet, although it's not really a hornet, it's a yellow jacket, and it's quite a bit smaller than this. These can be 1.5 to 2 inches long, but the real distinguishing characters are the oversized, large yellow-orange head. And I think you can see what I've circled there in red is that the head is disproportionately large to the rest of the body. Also, the last abdominal segment for this species is usually yellow. If you run into one with other coloration, still turn it in because it's probably one of the other hornet species, and none of them are supposed to be here. But this is the one we know of and that we have an active management program for right now. Life cycle, it overwinters as a queen. So right now we have mated or unmated queens hiding in earthen cells or void spaces like inside of a wall or inside of a tree. They will emerge just in a few months here and found new colonies. Workers will start to be produced, and they're found throughout the summer and the fall. And then new queens and drones are produced in the fall. And it's in the fall when the colony goes into kind of what we call a slaughter phase, where they'll go out and actively take out other social insects. So our native bald-faced hornet nest is on the food list. A lot of the wasps that you see on the eaves of your house, those are on the food list. And of course, managed honeybees. The response that we had here at WSDA was basically a response with all of Washington. And so it started with quite a bit of outreach, trapping, tracking, nest eradication, and of course, cooperation with the general public. Turns out our trapping methods are so easy that it was pretty much a piece of cake to invite others to join us in these efforts. And you can see from the map down below there, we have a bunch of red dots up near the line with Canada, but we have a bunch of yellow dots all over the rest of the state. And those are negative survey points from just average folks who decided to go to the website, make their own trap, and report their results. And that really helped us out because it allowed us to focus what resources we did have on the areas where we had the pest and we knew we had the pest. And it allowed us to kind of watch the back door with the help of everybody else to make sure we didn't have the problem anywhere else. Really cool project. We did a lot of different things. We eradicated one nest in 2020, and that was after a lot of trial and error. Basically, you have to trap hornets to know they're in the area, then start trapping them alive, put them on ice, and then tie a little radio tag to it. And then some poor brave soul gets to put on headphones and wander through the woods, hoping to, guess what, stumble into a hornet's nest. And, it's a little nerve-wracking because you're really focused on listening, but then, the end result of you being successful is you're going to step on a hornet's nest. Hats off to everybody who waded through the 8-foot tall Himalayan blackberry up in Whatcom County there and got all scratched up that summer. But we did it again the next summer and found 3 nests, which was really good. We got quite a bit better, and moving forward, we'll actually be able to put these up on drones and just do radio tracking using a drone, which will really improve the safety for our folks who are doing this. The great news with this particular pest is that we got no nests in 2022, no positive trap results, and no positive reports in from the general public. And this is 1 year of basically no detections. And so that is great news for Washington. To be safe, we shoot for 3 years of negative surveys. So we're not out of the woods yet, but we can be cautiously optimistic that this aggressive action, and more importantly, more than anything else, the cooperation from everybody who was involved in it, including the citizens who hung their own traps, at their own expense. And it's not horribly expensive, but it costs money. But they took their time and they helped. And this led to the first year of no positives. So 2 more years and we can call it eradicated, and everybody can smile and cheer for banding together and having a success. Oops, wrong way.
And this is about 4.5 minutes left.
Perfect. These go really quick. The next one is a Japanese beetle, and this is a copper-colored beetle that's native to Japan. It was introduced into the United States in 1916, and it spread throughout the eastern United States up to about the Mississippi River and the states that are just to the west of the Mississippi River. It's not yet permanently established in the western United States, and so what that means is it's not a pest of federal concern anymore, although the federal government does help out with this one by making sure that when airplanes are packed up in the East Coast, that they're not bringing these beetles to us. It's a very aggressive pest. It feeds on over 300 types of plants. Most noticeable is the damage it does to turfs and lawns when the larvae feed on the roots of these plants. And you can see the big brown patches. And folks here would tend to water that more, but that's a mistake. That just makes the beetles happier, and your grass will end up getting browner. So that's one of those things that we're dealing with a new infestation here. The adults feed on the leaves and flowers of several different plants. You can see the kind of severe damage on a photograph here from Grandview on grape leaves. And some of the most important hosts are actually grapes, corn, hops, roses, turf grass. I mean, they really will feed on everything, but the real damage is done by the grubs, as you can see in the lawn pictured in the picture on top there. In the spring, the beetle overwinters as a grub underneath the soil. They wake up as the soil temperature warms up and they pupate. Those pupae will hatch out here in Washington towards the end of June. The adults emerge, they mate, they lay more eggs. The eggs hatch out really quickly, and then the larvae start to feed throughout the late summer and fall, and then they'll spend the winter as a grub. Usually, this is a 1-year life cycle. Sometimes if they're a little behind in getting started, it can take them 2 years to complete this life cycle, with the first year being completely under the soil. We've actually surveyed for this since the early 1990s, when we put a quarantine in place, not against the people here, but against other states that have Japanese beetle. We have a vibrant grape industry. Obviously, we have apples here, but we also have a lot of nurseries here. And having potted plants come over from the East Coast is actually fairly dangerous. So there has actually been a state quarantine in place restricting the movement of potted plants and other items that could carry Japanese beetle since basically 1990. To be able to maintain this quarantine, we have to prove that we don't have it. So we've had a survey in place since 1990, and we usually get 1 or 2 beetles. They're usually at the airports. They come over in cargo planes and things like that. And you can see 2 little red dots up near the Seattle area there on my map. But basically in 2020, we had a hit in Sunnyside, which is in Yakima County, right in the middle of grape production. And that always scares us a little, because that's not a traditional pathway for the beetle getting here. But normally these things are hitchhikers. The act of trapping it eliminates the population, and there's nothing to worry about. So later in 2020, we responded with more trapping in the area, and lo and behold, got 2 additional beetles in a rose garden in Grandview. And this was scary. So we increased the outreach, made use of the wonderful invasive species week in the winter of 2021 in February. And one of the citizens turned in a picture of her flowers from earlier that year, just covered with Japanese beetles. So we knew we had an issue. We're required to do delimiting trapping, and our trapping identified 24,000 beetles throughout the 2021 season.
Sven, if you're able to wrap up, you have about 1 minute left.
You got it.
Thank you.
The WSDA response is basically additional delimitation trapping, outreach, and quarantine. We started eradication last year. We do contractor treatments using chlorantranilipril, and this is an EPA safer pesticide. It is not toxic to pollinators or other things if used by the label rate. And so First year of that, we did not increase our population size. We caught 23,000 last year, so 1,000 less, but we did spread to Wapato, which is an unfortunate thing. So we're basically settling in for a longer battle with this particular pest, but I'm going to stop with those two because Yolanda covered the snails and the spotted lanternfly, but those would be the other two that we have some active projects going on for now. With that, I'll wrap it up, and